Hi everyone, it's Cassie. Welcome back for another Trinity Stamps video. We're going to be making another interactive card for Christmas. I could not help myself, but let's talk about what we're using. I have the tiny elf, so cute. There's also a tiny Santa and a tiny snowman. Then I'm going to be bringing in this oldie but goodie called Stuck Santa. This is how it cuts out, but these are all the pieces of the die, so we're going to be using that. We're also going to be using the Simply Sentimental Mary stamp set along with the matching dies. Well, we're not using the matching dies today, but we do have those. And then I'm using the smallest circle for from my clean cut layers to use for my snap and slides, because that's going to be the interactive part. I have a piece of mixed media paper, and I thought I would try something. I am using these pigment inks from Lisa Horton. They are iridescent. You know, they've got some interference or whatever they call it. And so I'm taking my ink pad and going directly to the paper. And now this is pigment ink, so it doesn't soak into the paper super like right away. And so this is going to look like an absolute nightmare to start. Like this is, you're going to go, how are you going to get a background out of this? And I'm going to be honest. I was looking at this going, I may have to start over. This is not going to work. So I did bring in my blending brush. Now typically these blending brushes that I have, I only use for dye-based inks. I don't use them for my pigment inks. In fact, I don't recommend you do that unless you plan to clean off your brush in between uses. So I am using it for my pigment inks, and I'm blending on those colors, but I am going to take this blending brush when I'm completely done, and I am going to wash it really, really well with soap and water and let it dry. And then it'll be ready to use for my dye-based inks again. So this is why I like to probably have two different kinds of brushes. I mean, if you could do that, if you could have one for dye-based and one for pigment, I highly suggest that. But not everybody can afford that, so I totally understand that. So this is just an option. But I wouldn't just use it and then put it away and then grab it for my dye-based inks once again. So, all right, this is looking about as good as I'm going to be able to get it. And those two colors that I used were the Galaxy Dream and Frozen Icicles. And so you can see that shine and that interference or whatever it's called. It's got that really great shimmer to it, and I love it. But we're going to make this look better. So we're going to add a little bit of splatter of water. That's going to break up those parts that maybe didn't blend so well. And these are great to use with the water, which is awesome. So I'm going to wipe that up. We're going to heat set that a little bit, and then we're going to do even a little bit more. This is supposed to be a nighttime winter scene, so I want to make sure that it looks like it's snowy out. And so we're going to bring in some Dina Wakley gloss acrylic. This is in their white, and this stuff dries really quickly comparatively to other acrylic inks that I've used, or acrylic paints. So it is going to pick up some of that color on the background, but for the most part it will stay mostly white, which is why I like this stuff so much. So we're splatter that all over that background, and now it doesn't look like it was that bad. So splatter covers a multitude of mistakes, if you're asking me. All right, so now I've gone ahead and die cut out all the pieces that I needed from our Stuck Santa. And this is the chimney, and to bring out the embossing, I am lightly rubbing some hickory smoke distress ink over the top of it. Isn't that cool? It does give the distressing of a chimney, and I love it. So it's ready to go. So next I'll bring in some Simon Hurley Create Bee Sting, and I'll blend that on using my red blending brush. I have a blending brush for each color family, just because I find that's really, really helpful. I don't have to clean off my brushes in between. And so we're going to put that on the coat of Santa and his legs as well. That'll just help to kind of make him pop a little bit more, not such a flat color. Clean up our mess, and then we can start piecing a few of these things together. So I'm going to put my snow at the top of my chimney. And then we're going to grab his legs, and we will put his little shoes on the bottom of his legs. And you just need a little bit of glue on the shoe. And I like to bring my pant leg to it. And then I'm going to bring in some reverse tweezers for the cuffs of his pants, because it's a small piece. I find that when you're using die cuts and you're trying to piece those together, there's two tools that are absolutely a must. A pair of reverse tweezers, and then my pickup stick, which I will bring in later, because it also has that little pokey end on the one end that you can help move things around where you need it to, and it also has the wax tip that picks up some of those pieces as well. Now we'll do his coat, and I end up putting this too far down, but because I use liquid glue, I'm able to move it up to the top, because I realized that part, that bottom skinnier part, is going to be hidden behind the chimney. And then we can put his belt on, and then we can put the cuff on after we've put his belt buckle on. Now looking at this, I probably should have put his cuff underneath. Like that should have been the first thing I put on, so it would go underneath the part of his coat. But no one's really going to be paying that close of attention to that. It's just that's probably what I should have done. All right, so those pieces are ready to go. I'm going to just kind of place them together, kind of take a look at how that goes. And then we're going to put our background or our panel together. So I did, this mixed media piece was actually a little small. So I cut my snow to make this fit onto a 5x7 card. So it's like an inch and a half. This is completely unnecessary. If you'd cut your mixed media paper to 5x7, you can make your snow as big as you want. So this is going to be slightly smaller than a 5x7. So that's perfect. That's what I wanted. And then I've just set those things on the panel and stuck it off to the side. Nothing's connected yet. So now we're going to put together our little tiny elf. He's so cute. You definitely want to use your pickup stick and your reverse tweezers to put this little guy together, because there are quite a few pieces. I've put all of his pieces into my tidy tray. I'm bringing in the little companion blending stick that I have that Trinity just came out with not that long ago, and I'm blending some Ivy League onto his hat, and I'll do it on the cuff of his hat and also on his coat as well. But then we can start piecing things together using the liquid glue. And there's his little face. And then we're going to, like I said, put some of that Ivy League onto his shirt. There's also his arms and his pant legs, but I don't do much with those. It was just the bigger pieces that I wanted to make sure had a little bit of dimension to them. So now we can grab in his cuff that's going to go at the top of his shirt. And we've also got to grab his hair. What's fun about these little elves is that you can make them their outfits any color. You can make them any nationality. You could do whatever you wanted with these. They're so cute. I've used him a couple times and he just turns out so fun. And his arms, you can do different things with his arms, which is what I wanted to do today. I didn't want him to look just like he does in the picture that I have for my packaging. I decided to do something a little bit different. He's supposed to look a little surprised. And so I used a little creative license there. And you'll see in the finished product how that turns out. Now we'll put his hands together. So he's got his little black mittens and he's got his cuffs for his mittens. But that pickup stick is vital when you're piecing things together. Also great for your embellishments. And on the cuff, I end up not putting it exactly where I want it. So I end up taking the piercing part of the paper piercer or pickup stick. That's a lot of alliteration there. And I can move it a little bit using the pokey part of the stick. Now we can put together the rest of his outfit, which comes with 2 buttons and his belt and his belt buckle. So I'm putting his belt buckle down, and I've got his 2 little gold buttons for his top. I'm not going to show you how I put together his face because in reality, all you're going to see is my head in the camera because I got really close to his face trying to make sure I put things exactly where I wanted them. So you're not going to see me put his face together. But it is done. I don't have his mouth on there because I'm going to actually draw it on. And so we've got his little pants on, and we'll put his undershirt over the top of those pants to look like they're sticking out from underneath his jacket. And then we'll put his bell on, which is so cute. And then it also has the piece for the bell to make it look 3-dimensional. And I was having a time getting that thing turned around, but I finally did. And here's where I'm going to bring in a black gel pen. And I'm going to color a circle for his mouth like he's going, oh no. So perfect. That's what I wanted him to look like. And we're not going to piece anything more together with the elf just yet. That goes on after the fact. Now we'll stamp our sentiment. No, the chimney is not attached yet. So we'll put Christmas down at the very bottom, and then I'll grab one of the Marys and we will stamp that. I'm using a black pigment ink for this. And so it's just right down there at that lower right-hand corner, Merry Christmas. Very simple. And now I'm just trying to see where his legs are going to go, because we do need to cut a hole in our panel. So I'm going to mark that with this Memento pen, just kind of where the hole is going to go. Doesn't matter, it's going to be covered, so you can use whatever object you have to mark it. And then I'm grabbing in the smallest circle that I have for my clean cut layers, and I'm running that through my die cutting machine. Now we'll piece together the chimney over the top of Santa's coat. We're just going to glue that on top. And then we'll pull in the snap and slide. You'll grab like a male part and a female part. And we also need our sticky spot. That's going to attach his pants down to the snap and slide. And then it goes on there, and it has plenty of room to kind of move around. You just need to make sure whatever hole you cut is smaller than the snap and slide, but bigger than the little male, female parts. And so there his legs are attached. Perfect. And now we need to add some foam tape. Now the foam tape you need to use has to be at least 3 millimeters thick. If you don't have anything like that, but you do have foam tape, you can double it up. That will be fine. But you do need it to be thick enough that your mechanism can still move around. So 3 millimeters thick, or double up the foam tape that you do have. And then we'll add some to the middle. I'm going to end up peeling off the release paper on the 2 middle portions. And then I'm just going to peel back just on the edges. And this will make it easier to put down, and then I can peel off the rest of that release paper once it's actually in place. And that gives me a little bit of time to make sure that everything is placed where it needs to be and it's on there accurately. All right, you're also going to need a little bit of foam tape. This does not have to be 3 millimeters thick, but just some foam tape to put on the edges of your Santa. So I'm putting it right on the edge. I'm using a thin foam strip, and then I'll peel off all the release paper there. That just makes sure that we have enough room for our Santa's legs to move around a bit. So peeling off all that release paper, and then we can put that over the top of Santa's legs. They're not going to move a great deal, but they are definitely going to move, which makes this interactive. So fun. I love it. I think it's so cute. And then we can start adding our elf to the side. And for him, he's going to kind of overlap the chimney. So I'm going to need some more of those foam strips on the side of his head. And we're also going to use some liquid glue. Just making sure I know where everything is going to go. We'll attach down a little bit on that left-hand side of our elf. Peel off that release paper, use a little bit of glue. And then we can attach down the rest of his body. And then for his feet, well, before we do that, we're going to put his arms down. So his arms are going to go over like he's putting them up to his mouth like, oh my goodness, Santa's stuck. So you can make this little elf do just about any expression, really, which I think is so fun. I took some creative license here and put his hands up to his face. And then we're going to put his little feet down using some micro foam squares. I just recently discovered how absolutely vital these are to my craft room. Every once in a while you just have these tiny pieces that need foam squares and you don't always want to cut it down. So perfect. This is how my card turned out. I love it. I hope you do too. So if you do, please hit that like button. Definitely consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. And please be sure to check out all that Trinity Stamps has going on over on their blog, Facebook page, and Instagram for more crafty inspiration. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you soon.